Hello, my name is Nico Steves. With Memorial Day and Pentecost now behind us, it's summertime. First up, I'd like to thank you for your listening to these weekly Constant Procession podcasts, and also for purchasing, plus spreading the word about my new book, The Very Fine Light, which is available in the ebook format on Amazon.com. Why mention the ebook format? Because for the next couple of months, I'll be finishing up the audiobook version and also releasing a hardcover, or rather a softcover version in the printed form. More to come on the release dates for these new formats as soon as they're ready. This summer I'll also be traveling to complete research for my next book, and I will be bringing you a few reports from the field about this upcoming book as research and interviews reach fruition. Meanwhile, for your summer listening pleasure, starting with this broadcast, I will be starting to read from my first book entitled The Constant Procession, reading it actually from cover to cover through the summer in 15-minute podcast segments. So my first book, entitled The Constant Procession, was the genesis for these Constant Procession podcasts. The Constant Procession is about the history of the Virgin Mary since she passed on from the world, and why I started on my journey following her famous apparitions, which took me traveling around the world to those famous apparition sites, and many of the sites are generally located in some obscure locations way off the beaten path of tourist travels. And so, please keep checking my website, nicosteves.com, as I will be posting blog updates from time to time during my summer research adventure. By the way, keep me posted on what you're up to in the comments section of my website or via email at nicosteves@gmail.com. And now, here starts the beginning of my first book, The Constant Procession. Chapter 1, A Journey. Someplace right now, in the midst of humiliation or fame, in the midst of romance or pain, in the midst of drought or rain, there's a constant stream of people from all walks of life. In silence they move, a march of humanity, and always towards the same person. Long past from this place and time, a constant procession, some with candles, some on bended knee, some with roses in hand, some with tears in their eyes. To the same person they seek support, to the one some call the Madonna. No, she's not Miss Madonna Louise of rock and roll fame. She's known to some as one mother of many names. From Egypt to France, apparitions of the Virgin Mary, or the Madonna, have occurred all over the world. These places are but the tip of the iceberg, for upon closer look, the sightings and interactions of mankind within supernatural encounters with the spirit of faith are many. Long associated with the Roman Catholic Church, many of the recognized paranormal occurrences have revolved around innocent children or pious members of this Christian church. But this association is not limited to the Roman Catholic Church. One mother of many names, for instance, came as a takeaway gleaned from controversial sightings in Conyers, Georgia, during the last years of the 20th century. From people approaching on their bended knees, the long path up the apparition site in Guadalupe, Mexico, just a few miles from the heart of Mexico City, to 3 little children herding sheep in an isolated area of Portugal, the messages share consistent themes in each sighting. Some once secret are now revealed, while still other messages and sightings broadcast to the masses. The events are unusual, so they become forgotten and in general unacknowledged within the lives of modern mankind. Because in secular societies, apparitions are troublesome caveats that get in the way of how people wish to view themselves today. So these unusual occurrences are banished to the circular files, and the folks who tell of their experiences discredited as fanatics. In the established religious communities, they are acknowledged, albeit with great caution, as important examples of great faith. Apparitions happen all the time in popular culture. People love sorcerer and sword epics from times past, as reflected by the wild success of popular serials like Harry Potter, Chronicles of Narnia, and Lord of the Rings stories. They evolve from a series of books to expensive movies. People are enthralled with that curious oxymoron, science fiction. Many people are fascinated with fantastic stories of journeys through time and space to lands far away. Humanity can't get enough of these tales, and so it would seem for the faithless, why should the story of a simple lady apparating and in her wake creating love and faith in God be so demonized? Overlooked due to the rapid speed of progress, the messages of paranormal sightings are reopened for everyone, believers, Stoics, and skeptics, to critique in their own way. First, who is it that people are seeing? It is the mother of Jesus the Christ, the Son of Man. For many of the faithful, after her son, the Madonna is the most revered person among mankind, a virgin mother, accepted by her husband-to-be, as they both had received apparitions. They left their country in order to protect their newborn son after still another apparition gave them a warning. At the same time, she is looked upon with belief and scorn. With no gravitas, a young girl, a virgin birth, for many she's unworthy of religious significance, let alone a virgin birth. For most of the later part of the 20th century and on into the 21st century, she has been tucked away, save for some of the traditional churches, and it can be noted that recognition of her position has at times in those churches been subjugated to a lesser prominence. Nevertheless, the great love for her among the faithful has been unwavering. Flowers, in particular roses, are placed and votive or prayer candles are lit near statues of her, bearing silent witness to the reverence and faith people hold for her today. At this very moment, there is an ongoing, constant stream of people praying for her to intercede on their behalf with her son. People are praying for miracles at this very moment, somewhere on the globe. An acknowledgement of this faith, at least in the American experience during the late 1940s through the 1960s, comes into focus. Her influence is acknowledged as numerous churches are named in her honor. This influence has also been overlooked. It has been said that during both of the world wars, a weapon, the German mortar, had converted more men to Christianity than anything else. Perhaps this is true, for it's a human tendency for us to put our faith in something bigger than us in times of great duress, a time when faith in self is tested to the max. These otherworld sightings of the Madonna often happen at out-of-the-way, obscure locations. Yet, after a sighting, these somewhat common places are forever transformed due to these paranormal contacts, making changes that reflect the essence of this lady, turning these out-of-the-way places into spiritual centers for contemplation, creating spaces to which people migrate, seeking healings of soul and body, turning these sites into placid, oasis-like settings far removed from the world of modern man. Among people who have been around the visionaries during their purported communications with the Madonna, even the bystanders sometimes report an aroma of roses and feeling of elation, much like the feelings associated with wonderful holiday times when spirits are high and feelings of enjoyment fill the air, where everything seems brighter and friendlier. I first became aware of this constant procession of people reaching out to the Madonna when on a simple volunteer assignment to do something at a school. We sent our children to a private Roman Catholic elementary school. Getting there not late, but at least the last minute, as I often did, I found the annual volunteer sign-up sheet full, except for one slot called Marian Devotion Week. Though not Roman Catholic, I signed up and learned the details. The duties supported a one-week series of events to honor and celebrate the Virgin Mary, or the Madonna, also known as Marian, hence the name Marian Devotion. As 2 or 3 others had volunteered, I called to inquire what I had gotten myself into. I found out that in times past the children assembled rosaries at a couple of after-school meetings, and then during a special school assembly gave the rosaries out. I learned they had plenty of help. Other volunteers had done it before, and that I did not need to worry. The activity flew more or less on autopilot. This took the pressure off me, and I felt like I'd done my duty. It felt like being released without having to serve jury duty. But for whatever reason, I started thinking back to my schoolboy days, remembering how we guys would not take to stringing beads at all. I could just see my son's friends having the same reaction. I felt the need to try to do something anyway, something different. I remembered wondering, what is this Marian devotion all about? This got me thinking. Perhaps something additional, something engaging may help motivate the learning for these types of students. Being as my livelihood is movie making, I inquired to the school principal that if I made a 5-minute video about the history of their school's Marian devotion, would this be appropriate? I received a positive response, and so my journey into the works of the Madonna began. The church, Immaculate Heart of Mary in Atlanta, Georgia, at the time had several statues dedicated to the Virgin Mary. As you entered the church, off to one side had an alcove with a 3-foot-tall statue of the Madonna, a kneeling bench, and an area with vault of candles. And at the front of the church, off to one side of the altar, a life-size statue. I started filming both of the statues on an off hour of a Tuesday morning. First, I walked around to visualize where to place my camera. Though focused on this undertaking, I couldn't help but notice a steady stream of traffic between the 2 statues. People prayed at both statues, and some would stop to pray in between them. I recalled noticing fresh-cut flowers at the foot of the smaller statue, as well as quite a variety of rosary beads dangling on the Madonna's outstretched arms in the alcove. I made a mental note for future reference. The following day, I shot 3 interviews. I interviewed the parish priest, the diocese archivist, and the woman who donated the smaller of the 2 statues. While at the 3rd interview, I learned the statue had been created as a replica of Our Lady of Fatima. This kindly woman had purchased it while on a pilgrimage there and donated it to the church. She's the mother to everyone, and how could her son refuse a request by her? She said as more of an observation than a question. I had been somewhat aware of supernatural events that had occurred in the small village of Fatima, Portugal during World War I. The Fatima apparition has been acknowledged as one of the most recognized sites for the appearances of the Madonna to 3 children because of statements from thousands of people who witnessed a miraculous event at the children's final encounter. Apparitions, the church's name, Immaculate Heart of Mary. The Greek Orthodox Church down the street that I also attend, Annunciation of the Virgin Mary. The church and school my cronies attended back when? Our Lady of Lourdes. The history with respect to these honors got my attention. There seemed to be more to this than met the eye in Anywhere America, circa the end of the 20th century. We screened my movie, my volunteer duties fulfilled. Then it started. My curiosity had been raised by this procession of believers. In the secular world, Madonna is now associated with a sultry singer. In the concept of a virgin giving birth, laughed at. I began to wonder, why had these churches been named for the Madonna? What I had gleaned from my research at the archives is that a number of churches had been named to honor the Madonna right after World War II, as the post-war baby boom started and the building of new churches occurred at a rapid pace. The idea of naming them in honor of the Madonna seemed to be very popular then. But why? It got me thinking. Could the events of supernatural appearances of the Madonna been their motivation? I found the idea curious, and when you realize the most famous apparition had occurred well before the building boom, even before World War II, as the Fatima apparition had been over in Portugal earlier still, during World War I. And the other famous apparition, Our Lady of Lourdes in France, had happened in 1858, almost 3 generations earlier. And so I started my search to see what I could piece together. Chapter 3, Beneath the Surface. I learned of a just-completed docudrama about Lourdes, but at the time of my research it had not been released. However, I uncovered an old 40s-era black-and-white movie called The Song of Bernadette. Musicals not being high on my must-see movie list, I doubted it would have much to offer, but I determined to rent it and start from there. To my surprise, the movie did not take the form of a musical at all, but rather a compelling, though dated story, produced in the movie-making style of the time. Nevertheless, it had garnered a number of Academy Award nominations for the bleak year of 1943, when the whole world had been ablazed in blood. England's major centers pounded and weakened by constant aerial attacks from the German Nazis. France and other parts of Europe had been captured also. Mussolini's Italy, still part of this Axis horde and in full thrust of its aggression in North Africa and the Balkans. And in the Pacific, Japan continued to overtake island after island, destroying the Philippines and approaching the mainland of Australia. Of all the times for a movie to be made about an apparition, this adventure began yielding fruit almost from the start. Knowing something about movie making, I realized that the script may have been written perhaps a few years before, would have been around 1941. So who came up with this religious-themed story? I didn't recall religious-themed movies being that popular in 1940s Hollywood. I read the movie's info jacket and learned the story came from a book with the same title. I endeavored to read the book. More surprises and more questions followed. The author, a world-renowned intellectual and a non-Christian, had dedicated himself to writing the story of the events in the life of a person documented to have spoken to the Madonna. There's more information, photos, and links that can be found on my website, constantprocession.com. Please feel free to contact me at nikosteves@gmail.com. That's Nikos Steves, Steves, @gmail.com. An ebook copy of the entire book, The Constant Procession, is available at constantprocession.com. For a comprehensive list of approved apparitions of the Virgin Mary, go to miraclehunter.com. For more books and information about the Madonna, check out spiritdaily.com. And consider William J. Walsh's book, Heaven's Bright Queen, Apparitions and Shrines of Heaven's Bright Queen. Well, this is Nikos Steves. Thank you. See you next time.